The Davidson Empire's 50th anniversary celebration was in full swing at the Grand Plaza Hotel's ballroom. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead as waiters weaved through crowds of executives and socialites, all here to celebrate my family's legacy. If they only knew what I discovered in those encrypted files 3 days ago. I adjusted my Rolex, a graduation gift from Dad that now felt like a golden handcuff, and watched my father, Michael Davidson Sr., holding court near the main stage. At 62, he still commanded attention with his silver hair and tailored Tom Ford suit. The perfect picture of a successful CEO, if you ignored the $100 million fraud scheme he was orchestrating. Another whiskey, Mr. Davidson. A waiter appeared at my elbow. Just water, I replied, noticing how my Uncle Robert's eyes tracked my every move from across the room. As COO, he'd always been Dad's enforcer. The slight limp in his walk, a reminder of his special forces days, did nothing to diminish his menacing presence. My phone buzzed. A message from our head of security, James Wilson, files secured. Backup systems active. All cameras operational. I deleted the message immediately. James was one of the few I trusted, having discovered the fraud independently. He'd helped me gather evidence over the past month, building an airtight case that would expose decades of systematic theft, money laundering, and corporate espionage. Marcus, my sister Victoria's voice cut through my thoughts. She glided toward me in a red Valentino dress, champagne in hand. Why so serious? It's a party. Victoria Davidson, Dad's precious princess. At 32, she managed our Asian operations, or rather used them to help Dad hide money through a complex network of shell companies. Just tired, I said, forcing a smile. Year-end audits are brutal. She laughed, the sound brittle as breaking glass. Still playing with spreadsheets, you should let Thomas handle those. That's why we hired him. Thomas, my replacement in waiting. Dad had brought him in last month, supposedly to assist me as chief auditor. In reality, they needed someone more cooperative, someone who wouldn't question the irregular transactions I'd flagged. Speaking of work, Victoria lowered her voice. Daddy wants to see you in the private lounge. Family meeting. My stomach tightened. The last family meeting had ended with my predecessor, David Mitchell, having an unfortunate accident on his sailing yacht. They never found his body. Now, I checked my watch. 8:47 p.m. The evidence would automatically upload to the SEC and board members at 9 p.m. if I didn't stop it. Don't keep them waiting. Victoria smiled, her perfectly manicured hand gripping my arm. You know how Uncle Robert gets impatient. I followed her through the crowd, noting the security cameras tracking our movement. James had installed the new system last month, a state-of-the-art network, with blockchain verification and redundant backups. Dad had approved it, not realizing it would be his undoing. The private lounge was tucked away from the main ballroom, accessible only through a keycard-protected door. Inside, dark wood paneling and leather chairs created an atmosphere of old money and power. Dad stood by the window, tumbler in hand, while Uncle Robert lounged in his favorite chair. My mother, Elizabeth Davidson, perched on the sofa's edge like a bird about to take flight. Marcus, Dad smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. We need to discuss your recent concerns. I remained standing, keeping my distance from Uncle Robert. The audit discrepancies. Discrepancies, he chuckled. Such a careful word. Your grandfather built this company understanding that sometimes rules need to be flexible. Flexible doesn't mean stealing from shareholders. I said, the offshore accounts, the fake contracts, the missing pension funds. It's fraud, Dad. Uncle Robert's chair creaked as he leaned forward. Family loyalty means everything in this business, boy. Loyalty to what? I challenged. To lies? To theft? To survival? Mom spoke up, her diamond necklace catching the light. Everything we did was to protect this family's legacy. Victoria closed the door behind me with a soft click. The room felt smaller suddenly, more dangerous. The board meeting is on Monday, Dad said, setting down his drink. You'll present the audit findings. Clean findings. Thomas has already prepared the report. And if I refuse? Uncle Robert stood, his military training evident in every controlled movement. Then we'll be having a very different conversation. I backed toward the door, feeling the weight of the recording device in my pocket. The evidence is already secure. Multiple copies, multiple locations. Dad's facade cracked slightly. Evidence can disappear. Accidents happen. Ask David Mitchell. Oh wait, you can't. That's why I made sure everything uploads automatically, I said, watching their expressions shift. To the SEC, the board, and every major financial newspaper. I checked my watch, 10 minutes. The room exploded into motion. Uncle Robert lunged forward as Dad shouted, "Stop him." Victoria screamed something about family betrayal. I managed to dodge Robert's first grab, but he'd always been faster than he looked. His hand clamped around my right arm like an iron vise. The training device in my pocket clattered to the floor as he twisted, using his special forces knowledge with brutal efficiency. "Make it look like an accident," Dad ordered, his voice cold. The sickening crack of bone echoed through the room as Uncle Robert applied pressure. Pain exploded through my arm, but I managed to stay conscious, aware that my life might depend on it. "Family meeting's over," a new voice announced. James Wilson stood in the doorway, flanked by his security team. Multiple tablets displayed the surveillance footage from every angle. The next few minutes were chaos. Police sirens wailed outside. Board members crowded the doorway, faces pale as they watched the footage replay. My father's carefully constructed world crumbled in high-definition video. Emergency medical technicians guided me onto a stretcher, as Detective Sarah Martinez bagged the recording device as evidence. Through the haze of pain, I watched Uncle Robert and Dad being handcuffed, their protests about family business echoing down the marble hallway. Victoria tried to follow me to the ambulance, tears streaking her makeup. "Marcus, please, we can fix this." But some things couldn't be fixed. Some breaks were necessary to heal something bigger. In the ER, as doctors set my arm, James showed me the aftermath on his tablet. The footage had gone viral within hours. Davidson Corp stock would take a hit, but the truth would save it in the long run. The pension funds could be recovered, the stolen money traced through the evidence we'd gathered. "The board's calling an emergency meeting," James reported. "They want you to take over as interim CEO once you're recovered." I stared at my cast, already thinking about the changes needed. The company would survive, but it would need to be rebuilt on a foundation of transparency and accountability. The security system that caught my family's crimes would become a cornerstone of our new corporate governance. "Your father's lawyer called," James added. "They're offering a deal." "No deals," I said firmly. "The truth comes out, all of it." The pain medication began to kick in as reporters gathered outside the hospital. Tomorrow's headlines would be brutal, but necessary. Sometimes healing required breaking first, both bones and family ties. As I drifted off, I thought about my grandfather, the company's original founder. He'd built something real, something legitimate, before my father corrupted it. Now it was my turn to rebuild, to make the Davidson name stand for something honest again. The security cameras were still watching, but now they protected truth instead of hiding lies. My broken arm would heal stronger than before, like the company, like me. 2 weeks after the incident, I sat in my hospital room reviewing the damage reports, both physical and financial. My right arm, now secured in a blue cast, throbbed less thanks to the medication. The Wall Street Journal lay on my lap, our family's disgrace splashed across the front page. Davidson Empire crumbles, CEO and executives arrested in $100 million fraud scheme. James Wilson entered, carrying a thick manila folder and a cup of real coffee, a welcome change from the hospital's weak brew. "The board's forensic team finished their preliminary investigation," he said, handing me the folder. "It's worse than we thought." I flipped through the pages, each one revealing a new layer of my family's corruption. The $100 million we'd initially discovered was just the tip of the iceberg. Dad had been running schemes since taking over from my grandfather 25 years ago. "They found offshore accounts in the Caymans," James continued. "Your Uncle Robert was running a separate embezzlement operation through the European subsidiaries, and Victoria, she was more involved than we realized." The security footage from that night had become the smoking gun. Every major news network had run clips of my uncle breaking my arm while my father ordered it. The family's attempts to claim it was an accident fell apart when the audio clearly captured their threats. "How's the public response?" I asked, though the stack of newspapers told the story. "Stock dropped 30% initially, but it's stabilizing. The board's emergency measures helped." appointing you as interim CEO sent the right message, the honest Davidson taking charge. I laughed bitterly. The last honest Davidson. Your grandfather was honest, James reminded me. We found his original records. Everything was clean until your father took over in '98. A knock at the door interrupted us. Detective Sarah Martinez entered, her badge glinting under the fluorescent lights. More statements, I asked. She shook her head. Your sister Victoria wants to make a deal. She's offering to testify against your father and uncle in exchange for a lighter sentence. Of course she was. Victoria had always been pragmatic, looking out for herself first. The same sister who'd helped lure our previous chief auditor David Mitchell onto that yacht. What about Mitchell's case? I asked. With Victoria's testimony, we can prove your father and uncle were involved in his disappearance. The harbor patrol is dragging the bay again tomorrow. The weight of it all pressed down on me. My family hadn't just stolen money, they'd stolen lives, dreams, futures. Employees' pension funds, shareholders' investments, all sacrificed for their greed. James pulled out his tablet, showing me the latest security upgrades being installed at headquarters. Every transaction now has triple verification. Blockchain ledger, AI monitoring, human oversight. No one person can authorize major moves anymore. Including me, I asked. He nodded. Especially you. The board insisted, total transparency at every level. Detective Martinez's phone buzzed. Her expression shifted as she read the message. Your mother just arrived at the station, she said. She's demanding to see your father and threatening to go to the press with the real story. I could imagine it. Elizabeth Davidson, society queen, trying to spin this as a family misunderstanding. But the evidence was too solid. Hundreds of hours of surveillance footage, thousands of documents, and now Victoria's testimony. Let her talk, I said. The truth has enough weight to crush any story she invents. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. A photo appeared, me as a child, sitting on my father's lap in his office. Below it, a message. Remember who gave you everything. James immediately began tracing the number, while Detective Martinez called the prison to check on unauthorized phone access. They still don't get it, I said, showing them the message. Everything they gave me was stolen. And now it's time to give it back. The rehabilitation specialist arrived for my afternoon session. As I worked on regaining strength in my arm, I thought about rehabilitation of a different kind. How to rebuild a company tainted by decades of corruption. The security footage from that night had become more than evidence. It was a symbol of change, a moment captured in perfect clarity when a family's masks finally fell away. Every major business school was already developing case studies around it. Your father's lawyer called again, James said when the specialist left. They're offering to return the offshore funds in exchange for reduced charges. No deals, I repeated firmly. We do this right. Every dollar tracked, every crime exposed, every victim compensated. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the hospital room as James and Detective Martinez left. I picked up the Wall Street Journal again, this time focusing on the smaller article below the fold. Davidson Corp announces new ethics framework, industry-leading transparency measures. My phone buzzed again, a secure message from the board. They'd finished reviewing my proposal for restructuring the company. Green light across the board. We would rebuild, but this time on a foundation of truth. The security cameras in my hospital room blinked steadily, part of the protection detail assigned after we'd received threats from some of my father's old business associates. But I wasn't afraid. The truth once exposed had a power all its own. My broken arm would heal, the company would recover, and the Davidson name would come to stand for something different, proof that doing the right thing no matter the personal cost was always worth it. 3 months after what the media dubbed the Davidson downfall, I stood in the renovated executive floor of Davidson Corp headquarters. The old mahogany-paneled walls, my father's tribute to outdated power, had been replaced with glass. Transparency, both literal and figurative, was our new foundation. The morning sun streamed through the windows as I reviewed the latest financial reports with our new CFO Sarah Henderson. She'd been one of the whistleblowers who'd helped me gather evidence, risking her career to do what was right. The recovery plan is ahead of schedule, Sarah said, sliding a tablet across the desk. We've traced 80% of the stolen funds. The pension accounts will be fully restored by quarter's end. A notification popped up on my screen. The court proceedings were about to begin. Today was the first day of my father's trial, and the prosecution's key piece of evidence would be played, the security footage from the night he ordered Uncle Robert to break my arm. You don't have to watch it again, Sarah offered, noting my unconscious reach for my now healed arm. Yes, I do, I replied. The whole company is watching. They need to see that no one is above accountability. The live stream from the courthouse filled the screen. My father, still managing to look imperial in his orange jumpsuit, sat between his lawyers. Uncle Robert, separated by guards, stared straight ahead with military rigidity. Victoria, who'd taken the plea deal, would testify later that day. The prosecutor, Diana Wells, approached the bench. Your Honor, the state would like to present Exhibit A surveillance footage from the night of October 15th. The familiar scene played out in high definition. The private lounge, the family meeting, the violence. But this time the audio had been enhanced, revealing conversations we'd missed before. If he uploads those files, we lose everything, my father had whispered to Uncle Robert. The houses, the boats, the accounts, even that cancer research fund we've been using. That last revelation had sparked another investigation. They'd been stealing from charity, using donations meant for cancer patients to fund their lavish lifestyles. The courtroom footage showed jurors' faces as they watched. Horror, disgust, disbelief. My father's lawyer tried to object, claiming the footage had been doctored, but the blockchain verification system proved its authenticity. A knock at my office door pulled me from the screen. James Wilson entered with the latest security report. We found another hidden server, he said. Your father had a fail-safe system in the old building's basement. Decades of dirty dealings, all backed up on ancient hard drives. Add it to the evidence, I said, watching Victoria take the stand on screen. My sister looked smaller somehow, her designer confidence stripped away by 3 months in detention. Marcus, she began, her voice cracking. I'm sorry, I muted the live stream. Her apologies came too late. The evidence had revealed her role in David Mitchell's death. She'd been the one to lace his drinks with sedatives before he went sailing. Sarah handed me another report. The board approved your restructuring plan, employee-owned shares, transparent accounting, ethical AI monitoring. We're already being called a model for corporate reform. The company had survived the initial shock. Our stock, after dropping 30%, had rebounded as investors recognized our commitment to change. The Davidson name was being redefined. Your mother's book deal fell through, James mentioned almost casually. Publishers said her family misunderstanding narrative doesn't match the evidence. Elizabeth Davidson had tried to spin the story, claiming it was all a misunderstanding between father and son. But she'd forgotten about the security cameras in her private study, capturing her role in managing the offshore accounts. My phone buzzed, a message from Detective Martinez. Mitchell's body found, Harbor Patrol recovering now. Your father's facing additional charges. Justice slow but certain. David Mitchell's family would finally have closure, and another layer of Davidson crimes would be exposed. The afternoon brought a parade of meetings, shareholders wanting reassurance, employees suggesting improvements, ethics committees reviewing new policies. The glass walls let everyone see me working, a stark contrast to my father's closed-door dealings. The prison called, Sarah said as the day wound down. Your father wants to see you. No, I replied, not looking up from my work. He had 30 years to talk honestly with me. He chose lies. The security cameras blinked silently overhead, their presence now comforting rather than oppressive. They protected truth instead of hiding lies, guarded honesty instead of concealing fraud. As the sun set over the city, I stood at the window my father once used to survey his empire. The view was the same, but everything else had changed. Davidson Corp would survive, not as a dynasty built on deceit, but as a testament to the power of truth. My healed arm served as a reminder. Sometimes the strongest things are those that have been broken and repaired with integrity. 1 year after the night that changed everything, I stood before a packed auditorium at Davidson Corp's annual shareholder meeting. The company had transformed beyond recognition, and so had I. Last year we promised to rebuild on a foundation of truth. I began, my healed arms steady as I gestured to the presentation screen. Today I'm proud to share the results. The numbers told a story of resurrection. Stock prices had reached an all-time high. Employee satisfaction scored 94%. Our new ethical business model was being taught in Harvard Business School. But the most important metric flashed last: 100% of stolen funds recovered and returned. In the front row, David Mitchell's widow smiled tearfully. Her husband's death had been avenged, his reputation restored. The Mitchell Whistleblower Protection Program, now a cornerstone of our corporate policy, ensured no other employee would suffer for speaking truth. After the meeting, James Wilson met me in the new Transparency Center, a state-of-the-art facility where anyone could view our real-time operations and financial data. Your father's appeal was denied, he reported. 25 years, no parole. Robert got 15, and Victoria's serving 7 with her plea deal. I nodded, watching employees give tours to business students and corporate consultants. Our security system, once used to catch my family's crimes, had become a model for corporate accountability worldwide. Your mother called again, James added. She's selling the mansion. Elizabeth Davidson, once the queen of social circles, now lived in a modest apartment. Her friends had vanished along with the stolen money that had funded their lavish lifestyles. My phone buzzed, a message from Sarah Henderson, our CFO, Cancer Research Fund fully restored. First legitimate grants going out next week. Small victories, real ones. The afternoon sun streamed through the glass walls as I walked through the office. Employees no longer flinched when the CEO passed. Fear had been replaced by respect, earned through actions rather than intimidation. At my desk, a small frame held the only family photo I'd kept. My grandfather at the company's founding in 1973. He'd built something real before my father corrupted it. Now, in an ironic twist, it took the family's destruction to restore his original vision. The security cameras still watched over every corner, but their purpose had evolved. They weren't tools of control anymore, but guardians of transparency. Every major decision, every financial transaction, every corporate action was recorded and accessible. My last meeting of the day was with a group of international executives studying our transformation. They wanted to know the secret to rebuilding after scandal. The truth isn't just about exposing lies, I told them, unconsciously touching my once broken arm. It's about building something stronger in their place. As they left, I checked the day's final report. Davidson Corp had just been named Most Ethical Company by the Financial Times. The article mentioned my father's trial but focused more on how we turned crisis into opportunity. The sun set over the city as I prepared to leave. In my father's day, the CEO's office had been a fortress. Now it was a fishbowl, and I wouldn't have it any other way. My phone buzzed one last time, a text from Victoria, sent through her supervised prison account. I understand now what you did, why you did it. I'm sorry it took this long. Maybe some good could come from broken things. Broken arms, broken families, broken companies, all healed stronger than before. The security camera blinked steadily as I turned off the lights. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but we'd face them with transparency, integrity, and truth. The Davidson name meant something different now, something better. The end.